Dear friends, now we will talk about our next topic, which is demand and supply. We have taken this topic little early because it is important to understand the difference between demand and supply, and these words will keep coming in our upcoming topics, so it is important to understand their meaning before we jump to other topics. So let's define demand and supply. So we'll start with demand. Demand is basically a consumer's desire or willingness to purchase particular good or service, and it is also willingness to pay a price for that specific good or service. What are the key functions in an organization to understand the demand of customer? So basically sales and marketing are the key departments who are responsible to understand customer demand. Now on other side, let's understand what is supply. So supply is willingness and ability of firms to produce given quantity in a given period of time. So it is simply willingness and ability or capacity of particular firm to produce a given quantity in a given period of time. So it is willingness of supplier or willingness of seller, as well as it is ability or capability of seller. Now, what are the key functions who are helping to generate or create this supply? So basically operations, production and supply chain departments are responsible to create a supply against demand. Now let's take an example of demand. A simple example, let's consider there are two laptop models, and if I can afford only one of them, then I am ready to purchase the model which I can afford. That means this is a demand. If I purchase that, that has created a demand. And what is supply? Let's consider there are two companies. One company is ABC, another company is XYZ. So ABC company has requirement of 500 televisions and XYZ company is manufacturer of televisions. But the situation here is ABC company needs 500 televisions in a single day. But the problem here is XYZ company's capacity to manufacture televisions in a day is only 200. That means in this situation, the ability of company XYZ is only 200, and that means the supply in this situation is 200 quantity. In a supply and demand balancing work, all the supply chain professionals are putting lots of efforts because it is important for a business to have a balanced supply and balanced demand. Now, what happens in a real world, what happens in a corporate life, there are thousands of a product which we need to manage, which supply chain professionals will have to manage. And for these thousands of the products, demand and supply variation is continuously occurring. So customers demand pattern changes, customers requirement change, taste and preferences change, and that creates a different demand patterns. On other side, there are many problems on the supply side, like suppliers capacity, transportation delays, trades and compliance issues, customs issues. So to manage these thousands of products, it is very difficult for supply chain professionals in any organization to balance supply and demand. Now let's take an example of how demand and supply flows in a supply chain. So in this slide, it is simply shown that there is a customer who is placing an order on a manufacturer. So consider a situation that this customer is placing an order for a laptop to a laptop manufacturer. Now what happens is laptop manufacturer further places some demand to their supplier. So assume that the laptop manufacturer is placing an order for a raw material of laptop. Let's consider it is PCB or keyboard or laptop screen. So here you can see the demand has been placed from customer to manufacturer and then subsequently from manufacturer to the supplier of raw material. Now how supply flows? So assume that the supplier of the raw material is supplying all these parts to manufacturer. That means they have created their supply, and similarly manufacturer manufactures final product, that is laptop, and they provide it to the customer. So they have created their supply to the end customer. So it is a very simple example like how demand and supply flows within the supply chain network. But now in a supply chain network, there are many partners, which includes distribution channels, it includes warehouses, it includes retail channels, it includes manufacturers, suppliers. So demand from one partner to another partner and supply from one partner to another partner flows in a subsequent direction. Now, as we have already seen that every business has to take care of the balancing of demand and supply in a proper way. So let's consider one case where the supply is more than demand, and we will consider second case where supply is less than demand. So in our first case where supply is more than demand, that means I can supply more products than the demand in the market. Now assume that demand in the market for laptop is 500 quantity, but I can supply 700 quantity, and for that I have machineries, I have labors, I have warehouses, I have raw material placed for all these 700 quantity. But in this situation, what will happen is I am producing more, I am creating more products compared to the demand in the market. So since I am producing more, that means it is creating higher inventories, and to make that extra product I am also putting some cash, I am also putting some amount in terms of labor, in terms of raw material, in terms of space, in terms of manufacturing capabilities. So that is also blocking my cash flow. So these are the two major problems when your supply is more than demand. So first problem is higher inventories, and second is blocked cash flows. Now let's consider second situation where demand is more and I can supply very less compared to the demand. So in a market, assume that same example, market has demand of 500 laptops, but my supply capability is only 400. So in this situation, what is happening? I am not able to provide 100 laptops which are required in the market. Okay, so in this situation, the key problem that will happen is I will have less products to supply, and that is nothing but lack of product availability. And because of that lack of product availability, I may lose my customers who might go to my competitors. So that's the major problem when demand is more than a supply capability. So very important is imbalanced demand and supply has direct impact on entire operations, financial statements, and supply chain network and firms' objective of profit maximization or goodwill maximization. So again we have seen that supply and demand balance is one of the key activity that supply chain, demand planning, supply planning professionals have to do in their day in and day out life.